Okay, well, welcome Tim to the Databricks Diaries. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. I appreciate your time and your soon-to-be insights.
Thank
Um,
you very much.
no worries. And yeah, we established that we're pretty local, right? We've both got our head offices in the same leafy suburb of Wilmslow.
Yeah, I have to say it's very weird the first time we had a call because you were working in a cafe which happened to be literally outside where my office is. So yeah,
Yeah,
very
nice
local.
and convenient. You couldn't say no when you found that out, could you?
Exactly. Yeah, you'd find me.
Well, welcome, Tim. So I always like to start the recording just by going into the guest background a little bit. So if you could just give us, a whistle-stop tour of your career, and then, maybe delve into a little bit about your current roles and responsibility within Citation.
Yeah, sure. So I guess to start with, I did a PhD in statistics at Lancaster University, and that was it's called a doctoral training centre, a very good one in Lancaster, and it was partly on the academic side, so focused on research in statistics. I was doing time series at that time, but also it had very good links with industry. So I had an industrial partner. I was working with Unilever at that time, but I also got to meet a lot of different companies through that, which meant that when I graduated, one of the companies that I had got links with was Shell. So I joined their statistics team, and it's quite an interesting time because it was when data science and machine learning was suddenly becoming a thing. So I started my career there as a statistician, um, and then they started hiring data scientists or creating data science roles. So I kind of moved into that world. Um, so I spent 6 years there, uh, both in the UK, and then I moved to Amsterdam for 3 years. I then moved back to the UK and I got a job with AO.com. So they were just establishing their data science team. It was during uh, COVID, so they had a huge increase in sales and they were looking to invest. So I was there for about 18 months. It didn't work out for a few different reasons, but I found my first role at my current company, which is the Citation Group. Uh, Citation's one of those companies that is reasonably big, but not that many people will have heard of it. So we do business services, mostly HR, health and safety services for kind of small to medium companies, but also quite a lot of other things such as e-learning, certification, background checks, that kind of things. So again, when I started at Citation, similarly to AO actually, they were just making a big investment in data generally. So they just established a kind of centralized data team, and I joined as a data scientist with expectation basically establishing that as a sort of discipline within the team. And yeah, I've been there ever since, coming up for 4 years. And again, what was kind of interesting for me is just like when I joined Shell as a statistician and then suddenly data science appeared, I joined Citation as a data scientist and AI has kind of become a thing. So I got a part way through my time here. The AI team was established, so we hired in a head of AI, and then that kind of led me to my current role, which is the head of data science and AI. So my team kind of covers quite a few different things. So we still have the data science team, which is still a kind of core part of what we do. But also we have projects in generative AI and also in chatbots, basically. And that is across the whole of the company. So it's pretty varied. It's
Hmm.
lots of different areas of the business that we touch, especially because we're not that big a team. So there are 8 of us currently. So yeah, I guess that's the quick version of my career.
Yeah, very good. It sounds like you're quite privileged, to be fair, in the sense that you've been able to work on interesting projects. It seems like you've been kind of at that cutting edge, from the days of Shell, really.
Yeah, I mean, Shell is a very interesting company to work with because yeah, they have they're such a huge company. They've got such huge cash reserves. So their R&D function is massive, and there
Mm,
are experts in so many different disciplines. Obviously you've got the kind of expected engineering and kind of petrochemicals experts, but we also had some real world experts in statistics and areas like that. And again, being a company like that, you got to try out the real cutting edge. And I was privileged that a lot of the projects I worked on were kind of those cutting edge ones where we were
mm,
trying out new technologies. I mean, that's where I first encountered Databricks, where it was still not quite in the infancy, but it was nowhere near as established as it is now.
mhm,
And yeah, we got to try that out and use it to build a couple of projects. But then, yeah, Citation, we've kind of carried on that because it's a much smaller company.
mhm,
We don't have the same scale of budgets, not that many companies do, but yeah, I'm privileged that we have um, really pushed that sort of element of trying out the new things, looking at the cutting edge, what is available, and kind of
mm.
not being afraid to go out and try things. So yeah, it does mean that we get to play with the latest tools, and
Mm.
yeah, that's a lot of fun.
So a couple of things just to dig into then. So it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you've kind of come into it as from a stats perspective, and then stats became data science became AI. So is it the case that you're not necessarily setting your career up going, okay, this is the route I want to take? Is it more that you have to just adapt as the technologies, as the methodologies uh, change and new things come into the
I think
market?
I think so. So I've never been one for coming up with the 5-year plan.
Hmm.
I'm always thinking, at most the next role, maybe not
Okay.
even that.
Hmm.
So yeah, the way I feel like during my career I've done well is just being open to what is coming down the line next. Not being too rigid of I don't want to move into that area because I've got my plan, or I want to stick to what I know.
Mm.
Uh, but also looking at where you've got those kind of transferable skills. So, when we're talking about statistics and then we're talking about data science, it's easy to think that they are disconnected or there's a leap, but really not. All of the machine learning models, you know, with my kind of background, I just see them as stats models.
Okay.
And while there are differences, and particularly say moving stats to data science, there's a lot more influence from say the software engineering world. It means that I can kind of use the skills that I've already got, but then understand what is different and try and augment them with new things.
Hmm.
And it's the same with AI nowadays. So we talk about AI models. Um, Mostly people mean LLMs by those. Um, Again, that's a deep neural network, or very deep neural network, really, with the complexity of some of these ones. It's a machine learning model. It's not exactly the same. The use cases are very different, but a lot of what I've experienced, what I've understood with how you work with machine learning models or just data driven models in general is very applicable. So yeah, I think that you're right. The world that I'm in is moving so fast. I can't really say, oh yeah, I'm going to aim to be this role, because by the time
Mm.
I get there, that role might not exist anymore.
Yeah, yeah, there's a different
So it's
role.
always just
Yeah.
being open and adaptable to what's there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing you mentioned as well, which is quite interesting, is so Shell, buckets of money, R&D, lots of experiments or POCs, pilots that you get to have fun with. To then Citation, much smaller organisation. What challenges do you face working in a smaller organisation like Citation when you're trying to get that investment and trying to experiment and trying to dip your toes into more of the agentic and Gen AI type work?
Yeah, I think that the main difference is the the kind of resources. You're a lot more constrained. So a company like Shell, hundreds of data scientists. I'm a little bit out of it now, but there will be 100 um, people doing AI there, I can bet. And so, yeah, if you've got something and you need a certain specialization, you know, you can probably ask around and make a case of, okay, can I borrow this person for a bit? And you can get something up and running. And in the kind of scale of it, if that doesn't work out, it might not even really be noticed, as long as you've got enough things that do work out, that do land. You've got that ability to go out and experiment. It's not completely lost at Citation, so we do go off and try things, but just in terms of resources, we don't have as many people, so you have to be a lot more selective, and also there's a more of an expectation of kind of immediate returns.
Mm.
So in a company like Shell, they have a lot more projects which are going to be multi-year. It's not to say they don't face challenges, and certainly, particularly when I was there was more and more pressure, and I think it's ramped up since, to get quick returns. But there is still a space for things which will take years or decades in some cases to show a return. There's a lot less space for that in a company like Citation, especially that we are private equity backed. So we have a kind of investment cycle. So things which will give returns past the end of the investment cycle tend to be a lot less attractive.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, yeah, when you're doing something, you have to be a lot more kind of conscious around when are we going to get that return, or when are we going to know that we're not going to get that return and we can kind of stop and do something else.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, where I think that kind of clashes to some extent is the kind of things that we do, especially when you're trying to push the boundaries. It's experimental. So we go into a project and we don't know if it's going to succeed or not. And there's all sorts of stats that come from people like Gartner and say that 90% or whatever percentage it is of these projects do fail or don't generate value. So you can't fundamentally give people that same certainty that if I do this project that we've had this great idea for, in so many months, it's going to give you this type of return. It's more a case of, well, we're going to try it. It might give a return, it might not. So yeah, it's sort of living in that world and trying to kind of carve out that bit of time where we can sort of experiment and not sort of locking yourself down too early.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go into a project, again, fundamentally you can't say we're going to do exactly these things and it'll give you this return. So what we'll say is, well, we're going to give you a return, but we don't quite know how yet. We're going to have to try and experiment. And we're going to try and look at a few different things, basically.
Very interesting. So, with that in mind, I guess what do you need to, so before you're kind of going out to the business and asking for that investment to experiment and, take on a project, what can you do as a team in your role, Tim, to give yourselves the best possible chance of success before, kicking off a project?
I mean, it's something that we're still figuring out, if I'm being honest, and I think that we are getting better at it. But what we try and do is, again, strike that balance between giving people something credible to say, well, if you give us an investment, and this is something we've had to do a couple of times, and so, well, we need a new person to do these things, or we want to work with this third party to do these things. You know, people expect a certain level of detail to say, what are you going to do? What area of the business is it going to impact? And I think that where we try and look for is areas of business or kind of use cases where there is flexibility. So if we say, well, if you give us an investment, we're going to hire, say, an ML engineer or an AI engineer. They're going to build stuff. It's going to impact the sales team and improve their efficiency. We can kind of give a sort of credible and this is how that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to kind of give yourself a bit of flexibility to say, well, what's plan B? If we try and do this, what other things are there? Or kind of picking more kind of greenfield bits of the business where it's okay, I can probably think of 100 different use cases which would help you guys. Again, 90% of them won't be suitable, but that still gives us enough that we can find some way. Because as a general rule, if people give you an investment and 6 months, a year later, you show a return, the questions about how you got that or how that matched up to your original methodology, they tend to kind of go away. So yeah, it's again picking those use cases where you know that if plan A fails, there's a plan B and a C and down the list.
And is there like a like a multiplier of return that is expected from from the business? If we invest X, we expect X ROI.
So not explicitly for us. Well, if there ever is an expectation, then it's probably could we do a little bit more, a little bit more? As a very sort of general rule of thumb, I tend to hope for 4 times.
4 times,
basically.
Yeah.
Again,
within like a time period, or as long as at some point you get 4x on your investment?
Ideally within the year, basically.
So is that a year of the product being launched? Is that how it typically works?
Yes,
Yeah.
that tends to be it. Because again, as you're right, some things you don't get much of a return until it's actually built, until it's deployed. Other things, it's even after that because it's kind of there's a ramp up time, there's a learning time. But yeah, the sort of year afterwards, or at least you would expect to see signs in that direction soon after. But it also depends very much on the use case, because, and also the company you're in. And when it's a big investment, sometimes there's a bit of sort of leniency because in absolute terms, it's going to be huge.
Yeah.
But when it's a sort of a quick use case, you're kind of expecting probably a bigger multiplier. And one of the main reasons for that is one, so it's big enough to actually, in absolute terms, make a difference. But also, when we talk about small use cases, for everyone that succeeds, there are probably 10 others that didn't. So you kind of have to have something to cover those
Those
losses,
losses.
basically.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And wanted to just take it back a little bit as well. So when you joined Citation, I think you said, was there a data function when you joined, or had you joined and then created the data? I can't remember which one you.
So there wasn't a centralized data function.
Yeah,
There were a few people who were doing those kind of roles,
yeah.
uh, but it was very much, when I was hired, I was reporting to the head of data who had only been in the company for a couple of months longer than I had.
Okay.
So it was to get that sort of consistency, basically,
Hmm.
especially because the nature of company we are, so we're a group,
Hmm.
and we're very often acquiring new businesses. So over the last few years, it's been an average of 2 or 3 every year that get acquired, and their sort of infrastructure could be anything. And
Yeah.
typically, they're relatively small companies that we're acquiring, so they won't have reached any kind of maturity. So part of the idea of having this sort of centralized function was to get that kind of consistency,
Hmm.
and sort of bring companies along that sort of journey so that they had a blueprint of this is how you get to that kind of maturity in terms of, say, data engineering, data quality, BI and reporting, and then sort of operational processes. And then where I fit into all of that was in terms of machine learning. So, having that sort of centralized kind of team with the knowledge where we could look for use cases which then get replicated. Because one of the advantages of being a group is if we do something for one company in the group, we can quite often replicate that elsewhere.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that again helps with your sort of ROI multiplier, because you've gone through all of the pain and the work for the first one,
Yeah.
the rest should fall in a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay. And so I think what the point I would like to try and get into is, well, you've achieved a lot really in just under 4 years. I've just got your profile here. So
Thank you.
you've achieved a lot. Going from a business with no real centralized data function to now having, models in production and using some of the more advanced features of the Databricks platform.
Mm.
So for people who are going on that journey, and I'm sure you've had to kiss a lot of frogs to get to where you are, like what advice would you give to aspiring, enthusiasts who are keen to, follow suit really?
So what I think we did well is when we were looking at our kind of first use cases, particularly when I think about machine learning models. So when you get sort of pressure to deliver and to get that kind of return on investment, it's very tempting to say, well, we're going to do what works to get this use case up and running as quickly as possible. Uh, what we did quite well is try and resist some of that and say, well, no, we need to do this properly, because if we do this one properly, then all the rest follow very easily. And I remember, when I was first looking to deploy some models, because there were a couple that are sort of inherited that have been created by one of our investors. They have their own kind of data function, which helps their kind of companies they invest in. So I looked at Databricks, I looked at MLflow, and again, trying to build it in such a way that it's not just for this use case, it's still going to be working, a couple of years down the road. And then when I was able to hire a machine learning engineer, we got some time with our contact at Databricks and basically said, well, look, we want to ramp up, we want to deploy some more models. What's best practice?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, in terms of fairness, I know this is a Databricks podcast, but a lot of different companies have this. But I think Databricks are particularly good at giving you that sort of blueprint and giving you those sorts of examples. So we got a time with one of their solution architects, and they just kind of gave us that bit of guidance to say, well, look, here's a sort of ready-made framework. Here's all the documentation on it. Here's some kind of code examples. This is how you do it. And it meant that we didn't take on too much sort of tech debt.
Yeah.
So, always the problem, and I've faced this in so many of the different teams I've worked in, is the people who are really good at building the stuff are not necessarily the people you want maintaining it long term. Partly because they tends to be a different skill set, so
Yeah.
they're probably not very good at it. But also, it means that you're tying up people, maintaining things, chasing errors,
Mm-hmm.
retraining models when they could be off and doing the next thing. So, yeah, I would say that that's probably the best bit of advice I can give
Mm.
is even when you're doing your first very small scale, very quick use case, think about how this would look if you did this, if you had 10 of these. Who is going to be looking after it? How are they going to be able to manage that amount?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's also something that I see in, say, our data engineering teams. So again, when the data team was founded, it was not just a let's serve the immediate need of what people want. It's a let's build a really good foundation of data that will serve lots of use cases going forward.
Great advice. Yeah, I like the piece around the talent as well, because you're absolutely right. There's a certain set of skills that are I call them fire starters, and then you've got the good solid maintenance, building on what's already there. And I think that's really important to know and realize who those are within your team. Not only
Yeah.
to ensure that your projects are going to start as well as they should, but also to retain talent. People who are fire starters don't like to be stuck on BAU. They want to be doing something new. They want to be creating. They want to be working greenfield. So being able to recognize that, as a leader of a team is, really important to retain those, those high performers.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's like having your kind of long-term ops and maintenance of something be all of your fire starters is a very, very expensive and inefficient way to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the other thing I find is, particularly when a lot of companies start out, you'll go to third parties to build stuff, which it can be very, very sensible and is something that we do. Again, have a plan of what's going to happen when it's built and who's going to maintain it. Because again, having third parties maintain it can get very expensive and give you that kind of vendor lock-in.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have, and it doesn't need to be at the same kind of level and scale as when you build it, but if you can have some people internally who can then take on the maintenance of it, means that it frees up that budget with that third party to go and build the next thing, but you're still confident that what you've built is working, and you can, keep that knowledge in house as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a good point. I mean, Databricks have many partners and SIs, GSIs, and I think globally there's about 4 or 5 thousand partners now, and I've heard that that's going to rise to sort of 10,000 partners in the coming years. How important is that? Do you feel that partner network to organisations like Citation, who are, trying to keep at the forefront and investing in, in the newer technologies, because they're evolving so quickly, aren't they? And Databricks are making acquisitions. They've got a really phenomenal team in house that are continually evolving the platform, so it's changing so quickly. So yeah,
Yeah,
how important is that yeah, partner support, I suppose.
I think I think it's very important for companies like us. Again, when I you asked me earlier about the comparison between a company like Shell and a company like Citation. So at Shell, for most cases, the right answer if you wanted to build something was to do it internally. If you didn't have the
Hmm.
talent, you'd hire them because you knew that you would have enough work for them. Um, when you're, again, a smaller company, which almost every company around the world is smaller than Shell,
Yeah.
uh, you just don't have that. And like you say, things are changing so much that even if you did completely hire a team to go off and build something, by the time you get to the next thing, you might not have the right expertise in your team anymore to build that next thing. So having that kind of partner network does give you that added flexibility. When you're not in a position to make that very big leap, which would be to hire an entire team to be able to do all these things.
Mm.
So yeah, it gives you that also that confidence that um, you are doing things in the right way because again, you would hope that by being a partner organization, they have a certain level of expertise. They've got, the right kind of knowledge that they are doing the kind of best practice.
Hmm.
Um, when you're hiring in house, it's always a kind of question I have in my mind. Sometimes I have very, very good people, but I know that they've never built this thing before, and I've never built this thing before. So, are we doing the right thing? So, getting that bit of kind of assurance helps. Uh, what I would say as again a kind of warning, uh, where I think the relationships can go bad when you're working with third parties, is if you don't have some expertise in house to understand what they're doing.
Hmm.
Because even if the partners do know Databricks inside out, they don't know your company inside out. So you need that kind of understanding of being able to see what they've built, how they built it, kind of validate it to make sure it's going to work for you and work long term.
Hmm.
And as well, having a sort of in-house team who can take on that sort of maintenance, be able to make, if in a year's time um, you just need to make a few tweaks to it, as you always do.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want to have to go back to the third party and have a new statement to work and everything. You want to just be able to do it. So that's again, if you can get that sort of balance right, then that's where you can have a really good relationship with third parties, is what I find.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100% agreed. And what just my point around the speed of new releases and functionality. I think Databricks have got about 15, 16 product lines, something like that at the moment. So not actually too many to, yeah, I think AWS have got 200, right? Different
Mm,
services. So by comparison, a lot more simpler and digestible to manage, but nonetheless, still uh, evolving rapidly. And every summer after their, summit in San Francisco, a load of new releases come out. So how do you, as a leader, keep up to date with that and almost not get sort of overwhelmed and have that like fear of missing out? Oh goodness, we're not using
mm.
that feature. Oh my god, we're not using that. And then after that, how do you keep your team skilled and up to date as well?
Again, if I had the answer to that, it would be fantastic. Um, to be honest, part of it is, as I've kind of got further in my career, part of it is not being too worried,
Yeah.
because I've I've been in teams, I've had times in my career where it's like, okay, we've got to use the absolute latest. We've got to make sure that we are right at the cutting edge. Okay, if there's a gap of we haven't used this new feature which could help us here, then we need to do it. I think there needs to be, again, partly kind of not chasing the novel all the time. If you've got something that works, then there's maybe nothing wrong with it. It's not broke,
Yeah.
don't fix it. So yeah, partly kind of not getting too stressed about not being right at the forefront and using every new tool, because having a sort of simpler tech stack can be better. Having something which you know and understand can be better. But you can't rely on that too much. I've got a very good example at the moment of a solution that we built using ChatGPT 4.0. That's being deprecated in a couple of months. Thankfully, we are onto it in enough time that we can fix it, change it, and validate everything to work on a much newer model. But yeah, things do disappear and things do stop. And yeah, in terms of how do you then keep up to spot where the emerging trends are, where you do need to be more alert, partly understanding that it's not something that just one person can do. Yeah, having a team and kind of encouraging sort of curiosity in the team is extremely valuable. So when I see somebody on our team who has kind of energy and enthusiasm of, oh, I've heard about this new feature, it could be really useful for us. Yeah, I try as much as I possibly can to say, great, go off and try it.
Yeah.
And you've got to make a kind of conscious effort for this, because we always have deadlines. We always have more work than we can get through. So to be able to say to somebody, right, you've got a day this week, don't do all the stack of things that you need to do, go off and play around with this new tool. It's not always possible, but that's something that you do have to do, because you say otherwise you very, very quickly get out of the loop of things. So that's it. And also I try to keep up with going to conferences, things like this. So I went to the Databricks AI World Tour in London this year, and again, you can't pick up every single feature by this, but you can start to see themes. You can start to see, well, what is everybody talking about in the industry at the moment? What's kind of coming through. So there you try and kind of keep up as much as possible. But yeah, it can be a full-time job, basically.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I've been to the World Tour and the Big Data London, and yeah, you could get overconsumed with the amount of information and the different services and products available, couldn't you? When you're scoping out a project, then are you often budgeting in time for these experiment days? Is that something you take into part of your planning? Are you thinking that sort of?
Yeah, and I think that this is where sort of data science, AI, machine learning is different from software engineering, because there's that extra layer of uncertainty, and it's kind of fundamental. And it's something that I've sort of talked about with a lot of people, because Citation, the company, it's done software engineering for many, many years. It's been a fundamental part of what we do. So it's been very well understood in the kind of tech world of how do you run a software engineering project? What does that look like? Data science, AI, much, much newer. Didn't really exist in the company again until I joined. And in some ways, it can be hard to explain to people who haven't seen these projects what the difference is, because everything you say about oh, we don't know if it's possible. Oh yeah, that happens in software engineering. Or the requirements might change. Yeah, that happens in software engineering. It's kind of tell people it does, but not like it does in this project. So yeah, you have to change the planning with it, because it's not going to be a case of, right, we do discovery, but because it's an AI project, we'll do twice as much discovery because it's uncertain.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get to that point of, okay, we've done our discovery, now everything is certain and we can just go off and do it. Which again, software engineers will tell me you don't get that in software engineering. I would say that you really don't get it in AI projects. So what you've got to do is set up your project differently and just know that that certainty is not going to come until right at the last minute, maybe even after you've deployed it. So it is giving you that extra flexibility that we're not going to lock down exact requirements as much as possible. It's more going to be an evolution that every time we try something, we do an experiment, we know more. We don't know everything, we never get to that point, but we know a little bit more, so we can just narrow those requirements gradually over time until we converge on what we actually are building and what we're actually going to deploy. It's not going to be a case of, okay, we're very uncertain, now we've done all the tests we need to and we know. It's kind of building in that sort of extra layer where it is, again, it's fundamental. It's not that you've done your discovery badly, that you don't know everything. It's just how it is, basically.
That is, it's a crazy place to be, because you're almost like everything you do, you kind of know the reason and the end goal, don't you? Go to work, earn money. It's how do you keep your team motivated when like the end goal sort of never comes?
I don't know. I think it's partly that's sort of people that get attracted to this. I mean, I'm seeing it through my my kind of background. It's the scientific method. I did a PhD in stats. Have I solved stats? No.
Yeah.
Did I solve my area? No. That
Yeah.
there were, if I'd have kept on the same path, yeah, I could have an entire career and I still wouldn't get anywhere
I
close
would
to it.
never solve it. Yeah.
So what I think you want to change the sort of motivation, that it's not about that sort of final state that, okay, we've done it now, it's done. It's we're getting better. So you do get those kind of major milestones along the way. So, when we're building a machine learning model, have you got a model that is accurate enough that it's going to make a difference? That's quite a major milestone. Have you deployed it that it's going to start actually being used? That's a milestone. Do you then go to the next version where you've improved it by a certain amount? Yeah, I think that's where I think a lot of the motivation comes from. It's the journey, not the end state, because you never get to the end state.
Never get there. What about like external validation? Because I can imagine, like in sales, you make a sale, you ring the bell, everyone's happy. How do you get external validation as a data scientist, AI engineer?
That's a good point. I think that where it can be very helpful is to have a look back, because when you're in a project, it's getting better all the time. You're learning more all the time. There will be some kind of definitive milestones, but sometimes it feels like, well, I think I'm moving forward, but have I actually got anywhere? So occasionally you need to have a bit of a sort of retrospective, a bit of a kind of summary up and say, well, what have we actually achieved? And I think that's where, again, you're not at the sort of end state where you've got everything is working absolutely perfectly and your model is 100% accurate, because it's just fundamentally not going to happen. But you can say, well, my model's 80% accurate. The previous strategy was 50% accurate. That's worth this amount of money. And that's where you can start to get that sort of recognition, basically. Or AI projects, or if we're talking kind of generative AI as well, can be a little bit different, but you can look at the sort of usage and you look at the sort of way it's working. If you've suddenly got a lot of these, say, salespeople, kind of customer care people who are using ChatGPT as part of their daily job. That certainly wasn't happening a couple of years ago because it didn't exist. But we can kind of look back and say, well, yeah, that's something that we did. That's something that we have brought that kind of improvement. Are they using it to absolute maximum efficiency? No, because we're never going to get there. But it is a part of their job now, and it is something that's giving them benefits.
What are you most proud of, like from your time within Citation that your team has delivered?
That's a difficult question. I think that there's probably two things that kind of spring to mind. One is probably a bit more definite, one's a bit more abstract. So internally, again, my background being data science, I'm going to pick something data science related here. But we have a really good way of deploying machine learning models, and we have a good way of monitoring them. We know when the accuracy drops off, we can go in and do something. We get alerted if any of the runs didn't work. It's really nice. That's very geeky. What kind of gets a lot of external recognition, and I want to say this is not a personal achievement, it's very much a team achievement. But as a company, we won a national AI award for our project on callback prioritization. And that was a really big thing for us. And again, it was a big team internally who worked on that. And so, it was really good recognition for everybody, basically.
Very good. And can you give us a little snippet into the project?
Yeah, sure. I said because it's been deployed for a while now, and we won an AI award.
You've won an award.
It's not something that is a secret. So it is actually a really cool project. Basically, we have a lot of salespeople, and the nature of some of our products, they are quite a big commitment. So they are HR, health and safety services. So a lot of the sales are still phone sales, because companies need that sort of human interaction, because it's quite a big commitment for us. We definitely say, and our salespeople definitely say, it gives them that benefit back, but it's not something that you necessarily want to buy online. So when our salespeople are talking with a prospective client, it's not just one call. There's going to be a whole pipeline. There's going to be a handoff from your sort of initial kind of salespeople to your kind of closers. During that time, they do a lot of what's called pipeline management. So salespeople work with their managers. They'll look at all the different companies that they are calling, they're trying to sell to, and they will decide, who is worth my time, who is actually serious, where we're getting somewhere, who is not ready at the moment, so we need to kind of rest them. Callback prioritization helps in that. So we transcribe the calls that we have with our customers. That gets fed into an LLM, and it tries to pick out some of the kind of important topics that have been talked about, and it looks to relate those as, are they positives or negatives. And so you can get a much more kind of objective view of, I've had 4 calls with this company. Are we talking about very positive things? Are they showing a keenness? Are they, asking for follow-up calls, or are they just saying, no, I don't really need this, or I can't make a decision, that sort of thing. And so then this is something that we sort of scaled up, that we're doing this for thousands of calls every day. And it means that managers in particular can kind of have that conversation with the sales agents in their team and kind of look and say, okay, you've got all of these different people you're calling. You've been talking to this person for a long time. You're not really getting those kind of positive intents. Maybe you should stop, focus somewhere else. Whereas this one, that last call was amazing. They were really keen. Have you got the next one in the diary? What are we doing about this? And I think that is it's kind of giving a lot of benefits in terms of the sort of efficiency of the contact center. It also gives a lot of kind of sort of unexpected fringe benefits. So like we had a colleague, unfortunately, had to go off sick for a couple of months very suddenly. So all the different leads they were calling had to be passed to other people. We didn't have capacity to pass all of them on, but this suddenly gave a very easy way of, oh, we'll give the high scoring ones, make sure they are treated properly. These are the ones we might just have to say sorry. We'll call you another time.
Yeah, very good. Interesting. That sounds like sounds like you could bottle that up and sell that 10 times over. Yeah.
Possibility.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that kind of project then, is that something that the business comes to you with, Tim, and says, this is a challenge, how can you solve it? Or do you as a team look out, across the business and think, where can we solve things?
So that one in particular kind of came to us. So that was kind of at the early time for the AI team. And it was something that the business kind of came to us with. But if I look across our projects, there is quite a mixture. So we do a lot of outreach, particularly my boss does a lot of outreach with the kind of senior parts of the business. There's a guy on my team who is really good at talking and selling to people things, so he does a lot of outreach as well. And it's about getting that sort of excitement and interest. Another part which we're very proud of, I don't take very much credit for this, it was definitely for other people. We have what's called the AI Champion Scheme internally. And this is where anybody in the business can kind of nominate themselves and say, I'd like to be part of this. We have about 200 people signed up. And it gives, if you sign up for it, you get access to some of the kind of latest tools. So you get maybe a ChatGPT license or an Anthropic license. And there's various different calls and kind of learning sessions where people are taught how to use it. And the idea is they go off and they look at their job, which they know very, very well, and they say, how can I use some of these tools in it? And sometimes that's just something very personal to them, which makes their job a little bit easier. But other times they'll sort of try something and they'll think, well, this is useful for me, and it's also useful for this other dozen people. And we can find use cases that way as well.
I love that. That's really that's a great idea. Do you cap that then to keep it sort of exclusive?
Yes. And the very first time it was set up, we were expecting, maybe 20 people, and suddenly there were hundreds. It's mainly capped in terms of things like licenses for software. So, to really be part of it, you need access to some tools. It depends what your exact job is. It's kind of hard to figure out exactly what's going to be useful, but you'll need something. And so we don't want the kind of cost to balloon there of giving every single person in the whole company licenses for these things. But we try as much as we can to make it inclusive. That we don't want to set up too many barriers. At the end of the day, these are things that everybody in the company should be doing. I definitely believe that every single role in Citation could have some benefit from using AI tools.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'd like it to be opened up, but practicalities of cost and also just the, giving people that sort of expertise and understanding, means that we have to limit it somewhat. But, as much as we can, we're sort of rolling it out in waves. So, as I said, we've got to about 200 with the latest cohort.
Very good. Sounds like a great business to be part of. I know if I was working in data science, I'd want to be, in a team that that's backing it, that's investing in it, that's given the autonomy, empowerment to go and experiment. Sounds like a really exciting time for you and
Yeah,
the team.
we tried. I mean, I'm not just going to say this because they're my employer at the moment, but Citation is a very nice company to work with, and it's not just from a kind of tech point of view. It is a company that has a really good feeling internally. People do kind of support each other. Where people do have ideas, they're allowed to go and shout about it, and they'll be encouraged to do so. So yeah, it's the kind of company that allows these sorts of things to flourish, basically.
Absolutely. As well as the podcast, I mean, we run the Manchester Databricks user group, so I'll follow up with you afterwards. But if you're open to coming and presenting at one of our events, maybe even sort of demoing the project that you won the AI award for, that'd be really really interesting. We've got our next event 22nd of Jan. A lot of that's around Agent Bricks. We've got sort of demos from Databricks. We've got a customer who's developed a project that's got like Agent Bricks, NLP. What else have they got in their Genie? Document processing, all within this sort of solution that they've built. So if you're free, you have to come along. But yeah, it'd be great to welcome you there. If you were in a team wanted to come and present and demo the
I definitely like to come along to the next one, and a chance to present this stuff would be very nice too. I mean, Databricks is a big part of what we do as a team, so kind of spreading that knowledge and getting into that network would be very good. Also, Manchester is a fantastic place for kind of data-driven roles, and the more things that we have where we don't have to get on a train down to London for, the better.
I 100% agree. That Avanti, or maybe I shouldn't name them, but we all probably know how
we know
unreliable.
which one it is.
We know which one it is. Yeah, never is it on time. Yeah. Anyway, I won't rant on about that. But Tim, lovely to have you on. Really appreciate your insights. You've done a great job. Sounds like a really interesting journey that you've been on. It's been fascinating hearing about it, and you're running some great initiatives. Love that AI Champion program that you guys are running, and it'd be great to see you at the Manchester event. And thank you so much for your time.
Oh, definitely. Thank you very much for the invitation. It was great to be on.
Cheers, Tim. All the best.
Thank you. Bye.